For me, what I noticed in myself was that if something that was going on in my life that was hard, I would get discouraged. I would focus on self-pity. Woe is me type of thing. That really came to a head when I first got injured. I mean, my whole life was gone, and essentially in some ways, how I viewed it at the time. And thankfully, I'm very grateful to have had experiences that got me away from that. When you feel those things, you think the phrase go far. FAR is an acronym for feel, accept, recover. And as we've talked about many times on the show, you have to allow yourself to feel those things. You can't run away from those difficult emotions. You have to go through them, learn to accept your situation, and then recover. Pity, on the other hand, does not go anywhere that serves you. It is essentially just a mire that you wallow in, where you're like, woe is me. The most effective question you can ask is, how can I use this experience to benefit me, to serve me? So grief leads to acceptance and action, and pity leads to discouragement, despair, and inaction. Like I said, you want to be giving yourself the space to feel those difficult feelings and accept them without judgment whenever they come. But then you have to do something, you have to be willing to do something that gets you out of that state. If you're staying too long in those negative emotions, that's where pity can come into play, where they're not leading you to action, they're not benefiting you anymore. That self-talk will affect how you respond. The big thing that you need to understand is Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today's episode is something that is that has been a very pivotal change that I've had to make in my life, especially since going through an injury. And today I want to really focus this concept through the lens of those of you who are going through an injury. In the first episode of this podcast season, we had Dr. John Skidmore on the show, and he mentioned a big part of that conversation was talking about the concept of grieving your injury. His help with me in grieving my injury has been very helpful, very pivotal in my life and the other aspects of my life, how I view certain circumstances that go on. And so I want to distinguish today the difference between grieving your injury and what I call throwing a pity party for yourself. And those may be strong words, but I've noticed in my life that I've had a tendency to focus on the negative. And honestly, biologically, evolutionarily, we as human beings are wired to focus on the negative. Back in thousands of years ago, we were focused on survival. Our brains were wired for survival, and so we look for the negative thing that could harm us. And so that's kind of just how we're wired in general. But for me, what I noticed in myself was that if something that was going on in my life that was hard, I would get discouraged. I would focus on self-pity. Woe is me type of thing. And that really came to a head when I first got injured. I mean, my whole life was gone, and essentially in some ways, how I viewed it at the time. And thankfully, I'm very grateful to have had experiences that got me away from that. But the distinction I want to make is I don't want you guys to mix up grieving and feeling those emotions with pity. So grief and grieving your injury is a necessary part of the process. You have to allow yourself to feel the hard emotions, the difficult emotions that come with losing a part of your life, losing a part of your day, how you spend your time, how you serve others. And that is a very necessary part of the journey. There's a concept that the author of the book Rebound, Carrie Jackson, talks about, and she talks about going far. When you feel those things, you think the phrase go far. FAR is an acronym for feel, accept, recover. And as we've talked about many times on the show, you have to allow yourself to feel those things. You can't run away from those difficult emotions. You have to go through them, learn to accept your situation, and then recover. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the show. I just wanted to jump in here real quick and tell you about something that I'm really, really excited about. For a while now, I have wanted to create an even more effective resource than just the podcast that injured musicians can go to receive the support that they need. And recently I did just that. So write this down. Trust the Process Podcast Injured Musician Support Group. I know it's a long title. We're still working on that part. But this is a place where people can go now, injured musicians and even musicians who have gone through injury in the past, and people that help musicians go through injury, where they can go to receive the support that they need, whether that be ask questions, share their victories, share their frustrations, and overall just receive the community and the support that they need in a very proactive, intentional way. And so I just ask that you guys support these injured musicians by sharing this group with them, that they can receive the support that they need. Okay, enjoy the rest of the show. Learn how you can make this situation into a positive. Pity, on the other hand, does not go anywhere that serves you. It is essentially just a mire that you wallow in, where you're like, woe is me. Why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me is probably the least effective question you could ask. It just is. The most effective question you can ask is, how can I use this experience to benefit me, to serve me? So grief leads to acceptance and action, and pity leads to discouragement, despair, and inaction. And how do you distinguish between the two, right? That's a kind of a difficult thing. And I'll say that the grieving process is not linear. Nothing in life is linear except for math. And even then, I don't think it's linear a lot of the time. I never was that great at math. But the big thing that you need to understand is that as you're going through the grieving process, if it's leading you to find new ways to look at your injury as a way that it is serving you, those secondary gains that we've talked about, then you're on the right path. Also, like I said, you want to be giving yourself the space to feel those difficult feelings and accept them without judgment whenever they come. But then you have to do something. You have to be willing to do something that gets you out of that state. If you're staying too long in those negative emotions, that's where pity can come into play, where they're not leading you to action. They're not benefiting you anymore. Another helpful distinction that I have come to realize is that there's a big difference between disappointment and discouragement. So disappointment is feeling those feelings, right? Yeah, this is kind of lousy. This stinks. This really sucks that I got it. I would prefer that this didn't happen, type of thing. Be careful about the language that you use in those situations, because the language that you use, that self-talk, will affect how you respond to these situations and to these emotions. But disappointment is just those feelings. It's allowing yourself to sit with them. Discouragement is demotivating those feelings, and then coupled with complete and utter inaction, or even desire or the action of running away from them because you don't want to keep fighting for the things that you want to accomplish, coming back from your injury, being able to perform again, things like that. So discouragement, whenever you find yourself becoming less motivated to act, to move forward. That's probably the better way to put it, is to move forward with your injury recovery. That's where these emotions start to not serve you as much, as when you start feeling discouraged or feeling despair. Grieving leads to acceptance. If those negative feelings aren't leading you to some place where you can accept and move forward, then that's kind of the distinction that you need to make. And the responses that you choose when you're grieving your injury are really what make the distinction between grieving and pity parties. Now, there's one last thing I want to kind of address with you that has helped me to allow myself to grieve my injury, but then really use my injury as a way to move forward, a way to serve others and make it into a positive experience. And that is the phrase, I get to experience this. Whenever we see things or every experience that we have as an opportunity to serve us, or an opportunity rather than an obstacle, right? That is when those things become a blessing to you. So you get to do these things. You get to experience this injury. I know that sounds crazy, but you are allowing yourself to see these secondary gains, these opportunities that you're getting to grow. I get to experience this physical therapy, this rehab. I get to experience life outside of being a musician, honestly. I get to do this, or I get to do that. Define whatever those mean to you, or what aspects of your life you can apply that principle to. But seeing everything as an opportunity will allow you to grieve and then act, instead of throw yourself a pity party and not act. So I hope this has been helpful to you guys. This is a principle that I've really worked hard to apply in my own life, and I'm still working on it every single day. I'm becoming more aware of the ways that it manifests itself in my life, and I hope that it's serving you and it will serve you in the future. So keep on keeping on, guys. Shoot me a text. I'd love to hear from you. Keep on keeping on, and keep trusting the process. Until next time. Hey, before you go, we need your help with something real quick. Somewhere out there's a musician who is going through an injury or just a tough time. There may even be an educator with a student in that situation that they don't know how to help. We need your help in getting this message to them. Would you do them the favor of sharing this episode on your socials and with your friends? Also, cliche that it may have become, leaving a rating and a review actually does help people find us, not just boost our ego. So would you take a quick second and leave us a review so that musician can find us more easily? If you want to reach out to me personally, I would love to hear from you. Just look for the Send Us a Text Message button in the show notes of the episode. You can do that on any episode on your chosen podcast platform except YouTube. If you have a suggestion for a guest or topic to cover, shoot me an email at trustprocesspodcast@gmail.com or send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. I want to extend another heartfelt thanks to my team, without which this podcast would not be able to happen. Thanks to Daniel Baldwin, our audio engineer, Kevin West, our music and sound effects coordinator, and Dana Lovell, our promotional materials coordinator. So to all of you out there in podcast land, keep on keeping on and trust the process.